So, I mean, I have glasses, so what am I gonna do? I don't have a studio to block the glare. There's gonna be no continuity with my hair, simply because it keeps falling and I'm capable of making a video in one take. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about one of my most anticipated books of the summer that I actually read this past weekend. That is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I absolutely love this book so much. A major reason why I'm making this video to talk all about it, but also because it brought out an interesting subject in the book, which is the term chick lit, the genre chick lit, how we view it, how men view it, and what it is today. And so I kind of wanted to talk about both of these things together. So first, let's talk about this book that I love so much. Beach Read is about our girl January who has grown up loving love, viewing love as sort of this happily ever after storybook sort of way, and that is because it stems from her parents and viewing her parents' relationship throughout her life. Her mother has beat cancer twice, and she's sort of always idealized her father. And while she's in hospital waiting for her mother to be treated, she found solace in romance books. And so it's only natural that she grows up and wants to write them herself. So she goes to school, to college, and she meets her arch nemesis, who of course is our main squeeze in this book, and views him, she's attracted to him, she'll admit to it, but the way he responds to her type of writing, calling it, the happily ever after girl, she sees that as an insult and kind of carries it throughout her years at school with him. But she does become a bestseller author. She has something sort of explode in her life. Her whole worldview has completely turned upside down, and it's made it very difficult for her to write her next book, which she is in dire need to do because she's broke. So she ends up taking over this house that has been left to her, this beach house, so she can kind of hunker down and get this story done so she can give it to her agent and get it published and get the money that she needs to live off of. And wouldn't you know it, her next door neighbor is the one and only Gus from college, the one that, she just couldn't stand, but had those feelings for anyway. And the two of them sort of get together, make a deal. They're both going through a writer's block and make a deal to write each other's genre. Her writing, the next Pulitzer, and him taking a hand at a romantic book. And this is something she wanted to do because she wanted to prove to him, at first she says it's him, but we all know it's to prove to herself, that what she does, the genre that she writes, it's not so easy as one may seem. And that is the journey that they take together. And I wanted to bring up the term chick lit. It's not actually used in this book, but the subject is discussed because January has to defend her genre, which is contemporary fiction, with a romance aspect, and the way she's projecting Gus's thoughts and beliefs is that it's not hard to write. It's made for a specific kind of person, so it's easier, and doesn't really see it as actual writing. And so this is why I wanted to talk about the term chick lit, the genre chick lit, which is kind of faded away. So the term chick lit was originally created by, wouldn't you know it, two men who used the term to describe post-feminist literature. Genre was carved out for female authors writing about female characters and female stories. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good, and I totally believe that, except that this was not carved out for all women. It was carved out for a specific type of woman, which at that point was usually a white female, probably early to mid 30s, and dealing with sort of upper class issues, where the only problems in a woman's life was, she couldn't find a date to the dance, or, hadn't found the one yet, and was kind of flung in with all of these idols of femininity, and it being about shopping and getting your nails done and just very superficial things like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with books like that at all, but a whole genre shouldn't be dedicated to that specific story, because there are so many more voices in the world than just that person. And that is not to the fault of female writers. There have always been these stories, made for people, made for the world, but it comes from a publishing standpoint. Who's going to publish it if it doesn't sell? What we know sells is this white woman trying to find her husband in New York City while she gets drinks with her friends every Sunday. So that's kind of where we are now in this timeline of books written by women that are sort of, their ideal consumer would be a female. So when we talk about the terminology used and the stereotypes that are attached to this specific genre, I too have to admit that I have fallen in a way of viewing specific types of books as, they're not literature. They're not worth reading. You're not going to get anything out of it. And that is the romance novels in general. I've fallen for the terrible cover art and the names, the titles of these books, and view it as a whole of, not worth my time or money, which is so shameful. My mom reads these books. My whole life she's read them and she loves them, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Do I think that I would read those books if the covers were different? Yes. I 100% would. I love a steamy novel. I fall into the trap of romance every single time. I am the most romantic person I know, but so I can get behind and understand a chick lit was viewed as not worthy of actually calling literature, because I do that in the same way with romance novels. I don't think the books are necessarily terrible. I haven't read them, how am I to say? I'm not one of these people who hates on something but hasn't given it a shot yet. But I do understand how easy it is to diminish one's work simply because of a personal perception of what it is. But so now on our timeline of chick lit, we're kind of at that point now where the genre has kind of faded into the ether, and all of these stories are now just part of contemporary fiction. Before it was, add some jewelry onto it, or a nice dress, or a red coat on the cover. Now it's more like slap a Reese Witherspoon approval imprint sticker on those books, and you're getting the readers to read these books without having to call them out or rope them in with these sort of icons and color palettes. And the stories, at least from what I have read, are no more just simply about a girl getting a boy. The stereotypes, the dangerous tropes of this genre, which before was, how can I succeed in life if I don't have a boyfriend? Or I just have to be the special one, the one that changes him so he doesn't cheat on me. He'll love me, because I fixed him. And just that your whole life amounts to nothing if you don't find the guy for you. All of these dangerous concepts that have been living in females' subconscious their whole lives is kind of fading away now, and it's more, yes, there's romance, there's steamy sex scenes in the office locker room, but it's not just about that in the stories. There's more self-identity. There's more awareness that other things exist in females' lives besides just superficial things like getting your nails done or going on a fashion show. You know, they are feminine. Girls like doing those things, but they're not the only things girls like to do. And the other side of it is there tends to be a common thread that women are more feminine and they like more feminine things, and that's what catches the eye. But I think that is very outdated, and that is a huge reason why books that would have normally kind of fallen into the chick lit genre has now just become contemporary fiction. People are writing stories that are more raw and also can hold a place for more than one type of person. And when we talk about feminism, we also need to discuss race because the two intersect. And I think that hopefully we're now getting at a place where it's not just white women authors writing about white women problems in books, because the genre is now kind of blended into just contemporary fiction, that there is more light and more opportunity given to women of color to tell their stories. And, you know, the experiences that people have will either be the same or they'll be vastly different. There are things that happen to all of us as females, but there are things that happen to women of color that do not happen to us white girls. And having a place, a genre, which is just general now, contemporary fiction, gives way for opportunities for authors of color to write stories for women of color or people of color in general, because it's talking about race, we're talking about gender, you know, we're talking about femininity not just being for women. We're talking about a straight relationship between two white people not being the only type of relationship that exists. Chick lit, I think, is a very good way of starting this timeline, this history. It really carved a path, carved out a way for female writers to get their stuff published, and for female consumers, female readers to have things that are made for them with, you know, them in mind. There are a lot of stereotypes that came with that, you know, probably did harm to us subconsciously. I know for a fact it worked on me, but we're now at that place that representation is demanded now, and rightfully so. And these stories aren't just for a specific type of person, because that just doesn't exist. We're all kind of different in every single way, and everyone deserves representation, and everyone deserves a story that they can love. So with that rant done, I once again just want to mention Beach Read and how much I loved it and why I loved it. Well, I relate a lot to what January goes through in this book, and I'm tearing up. I think only cried like once or twice when I read this, so like that means anything. I cried everything. I just, something happens with January, and like I said, her whole worldview is turned upside down, and I know exactly how that feels. And I love this so much because not was there just a romantic relationship, which I have said after this whole long rant, I have said, and I will always say that I am a sucker for it. I will read anything that has a cover like this, and not some sort of just bare-chested man that, you know, turns into a wolf or something. So, I go on this whole conversation about representation and just, you know, appreciating things that, you know, aren't just made for you, but then I turn around and you know, diss a whole genre based off of book covers. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They could be better though. I really do feel like if they moved into a different direction of graphic design and cover art, that there would be more people open to reading those types of books. But hey, what do I know? I don't work in publishing. I love this book so much. Like I said, there's a romantic relationship that I absolutely love, but I mostly love it is because she's not trying to prove things to him, to the guy. She's trying to prove it to herself. She's trying to get past this horrible betrayal that she's experienced, find who she is and what she believes in now, while still maintaining this sense of confidence and love that she's grown up with, because it gave her drive, it gave her meaning, and kind of having her whole worldview change and having to rediscover yourself and how you feel about these big things that happen in everyone's lives, and where you stand as an artist, as a storyteller. I just absolutely adored it. So 100% for me. I'm so glad I picked this as one of my book of the month books. I highly recommend it. And if you are interested at all in talking about this genre, it's blend into just being contemporary fiction and representation in literature. By all means, reach out. I want to talk to people about books. But yeah, that's that. And don't know how to end these things. Thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.